Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Now for the guy who still thinks Aaron Rodgers is an asshole. Here's your host, Dave Carney.
So who's got two thumbs and thinks Aaron Rodgers is an asshole? Nope, it's not going to be his new boyfriend. It's me, Dave Carney. What is happening, Wisconsin, and, well, basically anywhere you're listening to or watching us from. The Trauma Center studios, coast to coast. Chad, the Trauma Center studio getting a little deconstructed here this morning in Stoddard. Last show from the old Trauma Center studios in Stoddard before we move it officially 100% into La Crosse. What a weekend. Full scale fucking moving. Weekend was never, I just never thought it would be this much of an all-in sort of a triage situation when you move 3 stories of a house into a 4-bedroom. And you're largely doing it by yourself. It's really tough. Do want to give a shout out to Dan's moving out of Eau Claire, though, Chad. These kids came and helped me move my stuff. It took them 3.5 hours to get from Stoddard to La Crosse. I mean, basically fully done. Hustling. These guys are hustling.
Gotta like that. Thomas is checking in. He's back. I don't know where you went, Thomas, but welcome back. Thank you. That's great that you came back. He's saying congratulations on your move.
Thank you. It's not 100% done yet. A lot of work, but still. We'll be broadcasting from the new Trauma Center studio tomorrow. Really, really exciting because, you know, Chad, you get into a new space and you're able to sort of reconfigure some of the stuff that you want to do and the ways in which you can position it. I think we're going to have a really nice look here. I really do. I'm excited about it.
I'll bet. Yeah, it'll be a cool change of pace. Hopefully have better reception as well.
Yes.
Right?
We've got
better internet, I should say.
A much bigger internet bandwidth. It's interesting, you know, you live out in the country and there's a lot of people out here in the Midwest, and I don't know if it really happens out west where you are, even though there are some rural areas. There are still places of this portion of the country that do not have like high-speed internet. Like you've got to bring people out to dig under your ground and bring you fiber optic cable, which is kind of what we had done here in Stoddard. So yeah, moving into the city, I think is going to make a lot of difference. I really do. Heck, the fucking Wi-Fi that I'm using right now from the bar is a lot faster than what we have here. If you can believe that.
No, I can believe that. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I would imagine the recovery room has better internet than most.
It's pretty robust when you've got a screen, you know, stream whatever 15, 17 high definition screens. And boy, this weekend, Chad, and we're going to get into it. This weekend, we had all sorts of fun with NFL football. NBA basketball let us down a bit. The Bucks fall into the Cavs, but Giannis wasn't playing. The Wisconsin Badgers are going to be in action again tonight. They've come off a recent string of strong play, but the NFL is what we're going to really focus on this morning. Chad, I want to give you an opportunity to jump in with this morning's poll question, which is on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, as well as the Sports Carnival group page. Who was the bigger disappointment this weekend in the playoffs? Was it the Cowboys losing to the 49ers, which we've got to talk about because that's your favorite team, and I fucking hate the Cowboys? Was it the Giants laying an absolute egg and getting dominated by those Philadelphia Eagles? Or was it the Bills and the Bills Mafia who had home field advantage, a snow game, and still saw the Bengals win 27-10? By the way, that Bengals-Bills game was our ESPN play of the week. We nailed this thing, and we are 4-2 in the 6 weeks now that we've been on ESPN as their official sports betting analyst. Where are you with this? Cowboys, Giants, or Bills? Who was the bigger disappointment for you this weekend?
I think the Giants. I thought the Giants would play a lot better than they did, and they absolutely got their ass kicked. Wasn't that surprised about the Cowboy outcome? Obviously, being a 49er fan, I think the 49ers are a better team. Cowboys played really well, to be honest with you, outside of a couple interceptions and not being able to capitalize a couple times. But and then as far as the Bills go, I wasn't all that surprised because you and I both thought that the Bengals would win. And they did. I thought the Bengals played amazing. Their defense was outstanding. And you go into the weekend with 3 NFC East teams, and you come out with 1. Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah, it's funny how it works, but let's just call it what it is. The NFC East had been the NFC least for years, and the Giants, this was a complete surprise. Brian Daboll and what Daniel Jones was able to sort of mold into as the season went on was a real shock for, I think, a lot of us. The Dallas Cowboys are a team that I just never believe in. I think they are paper tigers at every single turn. And Dak Prescott, and Mike McFaddy, they're just not a good combination. I mean, they're okay in the regular season when you can take a couple of wins on, bad teams. But when you need to put these guys in a big spot, I simply don't trust them. I will say this, the poll question, though, Man, this is all Bills right now with who's the bigger disappointment. 62% of the votes here on our Facebook group page have the Bills being the biggest disappointment. And Chad, we're already 27 votes in here. We just put this poll up on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney. 85.2% of those that have responded so far this morning say the Bills were the bigger disappointment this weekend. I didn't think it was that big of a surprise considering what we had.
Yeah, me neither.
But this is where I think a lot of folks use their preseason prediction measurements. Bills going to the championship. It's going to be a Bills-Chiefs clash. They use that to sort of color their opinion. This is why we can't do that in football. Basketball, baseball, all sorts of sports have a much longer season, and so the body of work is so much greater that you can sort of extrapolate things from it in ways that may or may not be true. The NFL is about, what have you done for me recently? What have you done for me right now? And last week against the Miami Dolphins with a third-string quarterback in Skylar Thompson, when the Bills were at home, they nearly got beat. And I did not think that that was a big boost of confidence for the Bills coming into this game versus Cincinnati. And listen, Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes are going to set up one of the better AFC Championship games we have seen since, last year. I can't wait for this. It's going to be a ton of fun. And Matty, good morning to you, buddy. Yes, we definitely nailed that Bengals straight up, plus the points. Matty was going back and forth with me over the weekend, and he was listening, by the way, Thursday on ESPN with John Papadopoulos, and enjoyed the take because we were really, really, really on this particular Bills-Bengals games. And there was just a lot of reasons to think that the Bengals would be able to at least cover a spread, which, Chad, as game time got closer, kept getting bigger and bigger in favor of the Bills.
Right.
You took them at 5. You had to love them at 5.5 or 6. I'm thinking, who's crazy enough to keep laying off the Bengals when we get closer to kickoff time? And it turns out there was quite a few people.
Rob Duck says he's been calling this all year long. We just found out about it today, but he's been calling it all year long. So that's what I like to do. I like to wait till after it happens and then say that all year.
Yeah, the Rob Duck.
Wait till after the Super Bowl. Whoever wins, wait till after the Super Bowl. I'll be like, oh, I called that.
Boosh. Listen, that's a better way to do it. You're never wrong. Seldom wrong and always right. All right, guys and gals, let's take our first quick pause. Say hi to our friends over at the Recovery Room. Coming up this morning, 8:30, Green and Gold Insider, now turning into an NFL Playoff Insider. Joe Daguanno going to be joining the program. I'm Davies Chad, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center Studios. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just a regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Hello, I am Don Francisco, and I roast and blend coffees for your pleasure and mine. My newest blend is Vanilla Nuts. The coffee so rich and so sweet, it tastes like the French Alps has dangled its in your cup of java. If you love coffee like I do, then you'll love Don Francisco's with a 135-year tradition. Because at Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
Casting live from the Trauma Center Studios. This is the Sports Carnival. You know what? I'm just going to say it. I don't care if it's politically incorrect. I am antioxidants. I just don't care anymore. I got to come out. I got to talk about it. I'm antioxidants. I'm done. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Nice. I like that. Way to go. It's going to be hard to disagree with your medical stance right here. And listen, politically or non-politically, I think that you're going to have to stand up for your right to be antioxidant. That's very good. I like that.
I am
antibacterial. How are you on antibacterial?
I'm antibacterial as well.
Antiseptic. How about that?
Yeah. I don't know what that means, but yes, sure. I'd be antiseptic. I prefer indoor plumbing.
It's an antiseptic. Right?
Oh, I thought you meant septic tanks.
No,
I like regular city plumbing personally.
Yeah, me too. One of the things I didn't like about living in Aruba, Chad, back in 1987, I'm not sure if it's the same now. By the way, Aruba, little country off the coast of Venezuela, they didn't have plumbing. I mean, not like we had plumbing, right? Like they had septic tanks or whatever. And oh my God, when it's 80 degrees with 89 to 100% humidity every day, and they go to flush out or drain or whatever it is they do with those septic tanks, suck that shit out, literally. The hanging fart smell that you get, I mean, it lasts a cold week because they're, where's it going to go? The air pressure just is like so moist. It just lays it right on top of you. It's
Nice.
not a thing. Not a thing.
Not good.
No, if you're into all sorts of shit and sports is one of them, welcome aboard. If you want to talk about the moon landing, we'd love to be able to take you. Got any thoughts on the flat earth theory? We'll go there as well. I'm also listening to a couple of podcasts, Chad, that are talking about giants right now and how
Giants are fun. Yeah.
Giants, how they may have inherited the earth. I like our friend Mike Byers, our favorite Wisconsin, former Texan now in Wisconsin. I like where he goes with some of his stuff. So, dude, he's got a particular take on Bigfoot being an alien. Like, did you know that there's a whole camp of people that think that Bigfoot is like an alien and that the race of big feet, they have come from parts unknown? Did you know about this?
No, I've heard interdimensional. I've heard that.
Okay, maybe that's
not
what
heard
it is.
Alien, but that sure I could go with that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mike, if you're listening this morning or watching us, let's get into that at some point because it's just fascinating. Mike came by to see me, as a matter of fact, Chad, on Saturday. I was doing a shift over at the recovery room, and I'll be updating you guys and gals because I'll be there a couple of more days a week, serving you some food and drinks. And we didn't get into the Bigfoot conspiracy, but Mike did want to get into what we both thought was going to be a big game this weekend, San Francisco and Dallas. Now, we've got our poll question this morning up on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, our Facebook group page. And I'm asking who the bigger disappointment is. Dallas, who's America's team. And I swear to fucking God, every TV show was trying to pump them up as a Super Bowl favorite after they beat an 8-9 Tom Brady-led team. Tom Brady, who is 100. And the defense and offensive line of the Buccaneers, which was completely in tatters, should have never been in the postseason. But they were, and Dallas gets a win. Small clap. At the same time, you knew that wasn't going to be that wouldn't be a good litmus test for the Dallas Cowboys going forward. And San Francisco is absolutely the best team in the NFC, at least right now. We'll see about that with Philadelphia, but right now they are the best team in the NFC. And Chad, if we can, for those that are watching us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Twitch, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn, let's bring up this graphic because it is looking real purdy in San Francisco right now. I'm all about the puns when it comes to Brock Purdy, who is Mr. Irrelevant, a 7th-round draft pick, last guy picked in the NFL draft, who is leading now the San Francisco 49ers on a really improbable sort of a run here. And maybe the improbability isn't as high as what you would expect because San Francisco is so well constructed. But Chad, Brock Purdy thoroughly outplayed Dak Prescott, who is making, I don't know how many millions of dollars per year, a lot. Brock Purdy just outplayed this guy. Now, his numbers aren't going to jump off the page at you and say, wow, he had a Patrick Mahomes type game, but he did every single thing that he needed to win that football game. And Dallas got, Dak Prescott picked off twice. The defense of San Francisco did what we thought that they did. As a 49er fan, Chad, walk me through your thoughts on the 49ers, on Brock Purdy, and what this Cowboys game sort of signifies, because this is something that I'm really curious to get your take on here.
Well, I think the one thing that it solidifies is that Brock Purdy's for real because that defense was no joke. That pass rush was no joke last night. And to be honest with you, I was a little concerned there for a little while. I thought that the 49ers weren't going to be able to pull this off and that the Cowboys were going to hang around. And luckily they didn't. But Brock Purdy is just amazing. He's just, kind of reminds me a little bit of how Joe Burrow plays, where he's unflappable. He doesn't get flustered. He's just consistent. Obviously, you've got all those weapons, and that helps tremendously. And then defensively, I thought the 49ers played really well as well. But really what cost the Cowboys the game was, unfortunately for Dak, was Dak's mistakes.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I thought it was interesting with Maher on that first extra point when he kicked it. It clearly wasn't going to go in, and it got blocked. But yet then he ends up kicking 2 field goals. So right. I'm guessing he feels a little bit better about that. But that threw them off a little bit on how they played that, how they played that whole entire, when they went for it as opposed to kicking a field goal in that one series as well. So this was just a great game all the way around. And again, I think it shows that this isn't a fluke. Everybody's waiting for him to fall on his face because he's a rookie, and Mr. Irrelevant and all those things. And he's just done nothing but prove everybody wrong. And it's truly impressive. Obviously, I think the next test, playing the Eagles, is going to be huge. Eagles obviously dominated the Giants, and I think that's going to be an interesting football game. I think defensively, The 49ers match up real well with the Eagles, but, Jalen Hurts is for real as well. So this is going to be a great NFC championship game. I think both championship games are going to be great, but obviously I'm leaning towards, the NFC championship just because I'm a Niner fan.
Yeah, and I think that the NFC, Chad, right now, with respect to the Niners and the Eagles, probably represent the two toughest teams left. I don't know, though, because I look at Kansas City, and Kansas City is obviously one of those teams that can pop at any time with Patrick Mahomes. But we also talked about Kansas City not being able to cover a 10-point spread versus Jacksonville, which they couldn't, right? And Jacksonville actually had multiple opportunities to get themselves into a position to possibly tie or win the football game. The Bengals are a team in which, started off the season on a little bit of a shaky foot and have really kind of rebounded. You mentioned their defense. It's legit. I think the second half of the season, the Bengals allowed like one score in the second half of games in the second half of the season. Once they go to halftime, this Bengals team has been nothing but lights out. Their adjustment rate. But, San Francisco and Brock Purdy, I think that the thing that's just surprising me and surprising the rest of the nation is that not just a rookie, Chad, but the last player taken in the NFL draft. I mean, literally Mr. Irrelevant, which is shit. They made an ESPN 30 for 30 about Mr. Irrelevance, right? Through the years,
Right.
There was some sort of laughability to being Mr. Irrelevant. Well, Brock Purdy is showing that, no, it's not just about being, drafted. It's not just about being drafted in what round. It's about how you come to work every day. What is it that you do that makes you a professional football player? Because look, Kyle Shanahan and most NFL head coaches would say, if you're here, if you're available, if you're able to take the coaching, your skill is already going to be commensurate with most guys because you're in the fucking NFL. Okay. Once you're there, there's really not a whole lot of separation in the talent. I mean, there is obviously separation between your starters and your fifth string, but these guys are all playing on a 53-man roster, 48 active for a reason, right? They're good. They're really good football players, great in some cases. Brock Purdy looks like a guy that did what he did, played 4 years of college football, started every single game for Iowa State, had a really high, pass yards per attempt and completion percentage for at least a couple of years, and comes to San Francisco, works the system, goes to camp, not like Aaron Rodgers where he doesn't want to come because he doesn't have a choice, but works the system, comes to camp, and you know what? Listens to what the coaches are telling him, and he goes out and he does his job. That's the thing. You just do your job, and that's where I think this San Francisco team is really dangerous. Now, at the same time, the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, that's a level that I'm not sure that Brock Purdy is going to be able to get to this year. But I don't know, Chad, because here it is. Once again, Brock Purdy, what is this, his seventh start, all of them victories, plus he had to come in and spell Jimmy G in that first game in which the 49ers also won. The kid you mentioned is unflappable, and I'm really starting to get taken over by the way that he's playing for this 49ers team. It's awesome. Christian McCaffrey, by the way, didn't even have that big of a game for San Francisco. I mean, he did get himself, 10 carries and a touchdown, but he wasn't the reason that the 49ers won. Brock Purdy's control of the offense, this was about as good of a management game as you could have.
That and Kittle's catch, that one-handed catch that he bobbled off of his face mask and kept running. He picked up 30 yards. That was absolutely amazing. And yeah, Rob Dog, it could be a rematch of not only Super Bowl 23, if it's 49ers Bengals, but also if you go back in the Wayback Machine, that was also Super Bowl 16. The Bengals played different quarterback. It was Kenny Anderson and not Joe or Boomer Esiason. But by the way, 49ers won both of those matchups. I could see that happening. I could very well see that happening. That would be really interesting to see the 49ers and the Bengals. But conversely, I think, if the 49ers lose and it's the Eagles, I'm all for the Eagles. Eagles Chiefs would be good. I think with Patrick Mahomes' ankle injury, that kind of leans me towards definitely the Bengals having a better shot. And I think the way that the Bengals played, specifically the way their defense played, and really the way the Jaguars played against the Chiefs, I really think the Bengals have a really good shot of getting to the Super Bowl again.
I do too.
Possibly winning. I mean, they're really playing well.
Well, and they are knocking on the door. They were there last year. They lose to the Rams, who had a really, awesome performance by Aaron Donald and Von Miller and Matt Stafford for what that's worth. But they've been knocking on the door, and they have beaten Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs twice in a calendar year, right? Last year's AFC title game, and then again this year in the regular season. And it wasn't even all that close when the Bengals beat the Chiefs. The Bengals really looked like they controlled that game. And listen, before we jump off of the Cowboys-Niners, though, I put this up as part of the graphic because I want to poke fun at Dallas, because this idea that Dallas is America's team is that's a marketing ploy. There's nothing else to that. And that was a phrase that was coined because they got on television basically every single week. There's no reason that Dallas is in the NFC East. Guys, they're in Texas, and the other teams are in New York and Philadelphia, basically. But the Cowboys lost for the record, 7th straight time in a divisional round, have failed to make it to an NFC title game since winning their 5th Super Bowl back in the 1995 season. This is an era of futility in which Jerry Jones has got his fingerprints all over. And I know that Dallas has good players and Micah Parsons is great and all that shit. But there's something about Jerry Jones's insistence on meddling with coaching, with player personnel decisions, with all of what it is that becomes the Dallas Cowboys team and franchise that, Chad, I just don't think will ever breed success. And it's like you and I talked about with respect to the now Las Vegas Raiders when they were still in Oakland, and we were watching them proposition us in Las Vegas to come and be the new franchise. We said until Al Davis dies, that team's never going to be good again. Because while Al Davis was a genius, I mean a football genius at one point of his life and career, he completely lost his shit, and he was not able to make rational decisions anymore. He wanted the fastest guys for no reason. This is where I feel like Jerry Jones is at right now. He has led this team into, while it's great profit and they're making good money, into an era of futility that it's almost hard to understand that they haven't been better than this in the last 35 years, 38 years. It's been a long time since they've been really, really good. I guess 95 is not quite 35 years, but you get what I'm saying. 20 plus years of just absolute nothingness. It's really kind of interesting.
Well, and now they're about to lose 2 coordinators. I believe Kellen Moore is going to end up getting a job somewhere. And I think Dan Quinn very well could get a job as a head coach again in the NFL. And so you got that problem to deal with. I mean, honestly, I thought the Cowboys played really, really well defensively yesterday. That defensive scheme that Dan Quinn put together was outstanding and kept them in the game. But it was really the mistakes offensively that they made that was the difference. I mean, I don't think they should necessarily, if you're a Cowboy fan, hang your head. I mean, they had a decent game, but clearly that was not what everybody thought was going to happen, right? Or if you're a Cowboy fan, if you're not winning a Super Bowl or at least getting to the Super Bowl, you've had a failed season. But I think overall they played really well. And what specifically is wrong with Dak or what specifically is wrong with the offense, I can't say. But clearly those mistakes that they made, and they need a new field goal kicker for sure.
Yeah, well, definitely. Field goal kickers out. Dallas with Dak Prescott, 23 for 37, 206 yards. That's good for 5.6 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. He only got sacked once, but he got pressured a bunch. Brock Purdy, conversely, 19 for 29, 214 yards, 7.4 yards an attempt. Did get sacked twice. And you're right, the pressure that Dallas got on the 49ers was substantial. And I think this goes back to Brock Purdy's poise and his unflappability, as you mentioned, because if he would have gotten shaken, if he would have gotten stirred, then this 49ers team would have collapsed instantaneously because Dallas did do a great job of stuffing the run, right? Christian McCaffrey really wasn't able to get off into any significant form or fashion. George Kittle was the key offensive player with 95 yards and that huge catch, like you've mentioned. But I like what the 49ers did. I'm still surprised, not stunned, but surprised about the way that Brock Purdy is playing. And this was something that was going around through the group text this weekend. Purdy and picks for Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, dude, who would, why would the 49ers do that? They've got a guy in Brock Purdy, they're paying nothing, $1 million. And then I saw somebody, and I wanted to say it was perhaps Jason P1 Breacher, who, by the way, Chad, helped me out incredibly this weekend with my move, helped me bring a whole bunch of stuff over to the new apartment. I can't remember if it was Breacher or somebody else. I'll have to check my text threads again, but it was talking about the cap hits for the 2 NFC quarterbacks that are in the championship game now. Jalen Hurts at $2 million, Brock Purdy at $1 million. That's like $38 million less of a cap hit than Aaron Rodgers, whose team did not make the postseason.
Wow.
And now we're starting to hear reports, and we'll talk about this upcoming with Green and Gold insider Joe Daguanno, who joins the program at 8:30 this morning, Chad. The reports are coming out. Sports Illustrated had this. Adam Schefter on NFL Sunday Countdown said this with the lovely Sam Ponder, that Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers could be discussing, at least in principle, the frameworks of what would be a trade if, in fact, he doesn't come back. It really feels like Rodgers is going to stick around and play football. I don't see him retiring after this last season. I mean, he's got too many things to prove to Pat McAfee and A.J. Hawk. So because of that, I think he comes back, but now we're starting to hear that the Packers and Aaron Rodgers could be open to making a trade. The contract is going to be really interesting because who's going to take that on, right? The contract, even though the Packers have to eat dead money, it's not like Aaron Rodgers isn't going to get paid the same amount that he was getting paid with the Packers. That new team has still got to pay him. Who wants in on that? Who wants in on that? I mean, the Bears have a boatload of money. He ain't going there. That's not going to be a place because, well, I don't know. He does own the Bears. Does he want to be an owner of the Bears? I don't think so. And the Packers aren't trading him in division. I don't really see where he goes. I mean, what's the landing spot for him? Is it Nashville? Do the Titans take a big swing and, try to bring Aaron Rodgers in? Who's biting on these aged quarterbacks? This reminds me of Drew Brees at the end, man. It's time to pack it up if you're not going to play for the team that you're playing for.
That's kind of what I was just going to say. If he's not going to stick with the Packers, then I don't really see a benefit. I don't know who would, unless it's a team that just needs a quarterback for a season and then they're going to move on. And they know that.
I mean, where does he go? There's only a couple of teams when you think about it that, it would even make sense.
Yeah. I mean, again, you always go back to what we mentioned before. Just because Al Davis is gone doesn't necessarily mean the Raiders don't make dumb decisions. They love all of the old recycled once great players. They love guys that have all kinds of hardware that used to be relevant. That's a huge thing for them. Oh, you won a Heisman Trophy in the 70s? Cool. You want to come play with us? They're cool with that. So, again, and we've talked about Tom Brady going there.
Right.
So maybe Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are going to, Indian leg wrestle for the Raiders position.
Wow.
I don't know.
It looks like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're trying to make all sorts of concessions for Brady right now. They're firing Byron Leftwich and, seeing if they can't clean out the coaching staff, make it more attractive for Brady. Wouldn't it be interesting if Brady and Rodgers both went to the Raiders and they had a quarterback competition to see which, our two quarterbacks have a combined age of 100. Which of these guys is going to be the starter this year? I mean, give credit to Brady. He's been durable. He's never missing games. And Rodgers has been pretty durable, except for the injuries he has, which he tells you about after he's not playing well. But for the most part, these guys are both on the field. Listen, I know that Al Davis is fucking with other owners, and that's why Joe V liked him. The Raiders are crazy, and they'll probably make a play for Tom Brady. And if they could get Aaron Rodgers, they probably would. But here's the other thing.
Well, I put him back together with Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams would ask for a trade right away. This is something that I think goes well underreported. If Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers were super friends, like people tried to tell me a year or so ago, oh, these guys are Snapchatting at night and they're just making their contracts together. If they were such friends, why did Devontae say, no, I actually need to go the furthest place away from this guy? And the thing is, Aaron doesn't seem to really, I don't know if he resonates well with these younger players. Tom Brady, for what it's worth, at 45 years old, feels like he resonates more with younger players than Aaron Rodgers does. He really does. And the younger players of the NFL still seem to resonate more with Tom Brady than they do with Aaron Rodgers. Like Tom Brady's, the age isn't everything, right? Age is just a number. But Tom Brady's approach to football and how much he just loves the game of football and wants to win, I think that bonds him with some of these younger guys. Oh, and by the way, he'll be willing to risk his marriage and the police of South Florida to go out there and throw footballs in an open high school lot while Rodgers is busy, doing whatever he's doing, which is fine on a personal level, but not if you're an NFL football player and not if you're a Green Bay Packer fan who looks at this guy and says, wait, we gave you $110 million last year at age 37. Now you're going to tell us that you don't want to do it anymore because there's young players. Like, what did you think you were getting into? That's the same shit Deshaun Watson pulled with the Texans, sit there and cries with Bill O'Brien and, oh, man, I'm so glad to get this contract. They already traded DeAndre Hopkins. And then 2 days later, I don't want to play here anymore. What? I mean, were you swindling the guys that you got the contract from? Like, were you actually trying to steal from them? Because if that's the case, all right. But Jesus Christ, it seems like it's a bit of a miss.
What if Tom Brady goes to the Raiders and Aaron Rodgers goes to the Buccaneers?
Oh, God. Wouldn't that be something? Oh, my God.
It could happen. It could happen. Who knows what'll happen? I mean,
wouldn't
really,
that be something? Wouldn't that be
It would
something?
be sponsored. The trade, or I guess the deal would be sponsored by AARP, which is
hey, you don't know ARP. I can tell you. You don't know ARP.
I do not.
All right, guys and gals,
Yes.
Stay tuned. Sports Carnival broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios, powered by the Recovery Room. Going to be back after about 60 seconds. Our Green and Gold insider, Joe Daguanno, going to be here with us. We want Joe's thoughts on the NFL playoffs from over the weekend. And, of course, these new reports, Adam Schefter, Sports Illustrated, mentioning Aaron Rodgers and the Packers could be in line for a trade if things don't work out. Stick around. Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate. The official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest mortgage team of Land Home Financial, my good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Listen, we all know the mortgage industry is in a bit of an upheaval right now, and that's why it's more important than ever to go to a couple of guys that you can trust, a local operation right here in La Crosse. That is the Midwest mortgage team. Again, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi of Land Home Financial. Don't make a mistake with your mortgage needs. Go to the official mortgage provider of the Sports Carnival, the Midwest mortgage team, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Remember to load a Super Bowl before the big game starts. Makes the snacks taste that much better. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Shout out to our friends over at Stack's Farms who, Chad, make the highest quality Delta 9s and Delta 10s, Delta 8s, and all sorts of CBD gummies here in the Cooley region. Joe Daguanno is our green and gold insider. And Joe, I'm not saying that you should load a bowl of green to get your game face on, but if you did, again, Stack's Family Farms is one of our favorites out here in the area. It's funny, it's not STACH, who is our good buddy Scott Stack and Stackula, the Stackulator, and the smoking spider Peter himself. But again, Stack's Farms, a local operation. Joe, top of the morning, you're in Eau Claire today, aren't you?
No, this is the Madison office.
This is Madison. Okay.
So you see the what you'll know the Madison office because Papa Bear and Vince are always over my shoulder.
Got it.
Because again, and I'll say this for all the Bear fans out there, if it wasn't for Papa Bear Hallis, there are no Green Bay Packers. So it is the one franchise that I say I tip my hat to.
Well, Chicago's long history of futility, Joe, is one of the reasons the Packers have had such success because they've been able to count on at least 2 victories a year against the Bears, and that's why Aaron Rodgers owns those guys. Before we get into the rumor mill, because this is something I've got to get your take on, but we want to put a pause on that with Aaron Rodgers. Let's go over the NFC and AFC playoffs from this weekend. Joe, the poll question this morning on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney and our Facebook group page is simply, who was the bigger disappointment? We've got Buffalo, the Giants, and or those Dallas Cowboys. The Buffalo Bills are right now way ahead of the other 2 teams as far as the biggest disappointment, according to our respondents. What about you? Who's the bigger disappointment? And then we'll talk about the game perhaps that you thought gave you the most that you learned from this weekend.
It's got to be Buffalo. There's just no question. And I hearken back, and Packer fans as old as me will remember the infamous Brett Favre year when his dad died. And he comes out against the Raiders on Monday Night Football. And it just seemed like the Packers were going to go on a playoff run. It seemed like the emotional side of football that it was playing in the Packers' favor. And again, with everything with Damar Hamlin and everything that's been happening in Buffalo, you kind of felt that same way. And I was listening to Kyle Brandt, and Kyle Brandt said that essentially they had everything set up for the Super Bowl. They knew what they were going to say. They knew what liquor they were going to drink. They knew all of these things and teeing up. And Josh Allen, he talked about, it was going to be a 20-year scotch and he already had the Super Bowl acceptance speech. So I think it's Buffalo. And like I said, I think Buffalo, there's a lot of synergy and similarities between heartbreaking losses with the Green Bay Packers and Buffalo. And I think Josh Allen, terrific quarterback, but Joe Burrow, dude, he's the fucking man.
Yeah.
And I mean, I saw a lot of people on Twitter and social media say, is Joe Burrow now the undisputed number 2 quarterback in the NFL? And I think, you know what, depends on what happens this coming week, but he might be number 1. And so it's got to be Buffalo, and you got to look at this team and you're saying, because they got a lot of free agents this offseason to re-sign. This, the window, and we always talk about the window. It is tiny, man. It is fucking minuscule. And when you miss that opportunity, and right now I will tell you, if Kansas City loses this week, you can start kind of pointing now your finger at Kansas City with that window as well. And so it's really interesting. But yeah, there's no question that Buffalo game surprised the shit out of me. And Zach Taylor deserves a lot of props because his coaching staff, when you went into this game, you looked at it and said that offensive line for Cincinnati is a fucking mess. And then you look at what he was able to do. It was brilliant coaching by the Cincinnati Bengals.
Cincinnati, Chad, has really been one of these teams that, surprises us all. And Joe, I think you agree with this. You go from one of the worst teams in the league, get that number one pick, get Joe Burrow. You have the new coaching staff, this kid, Zach Taylor, who nobody had ever heard of before, really. And then within 2 years, you have an injury-prone first season. The kid gets hurt in a way that may have altered his career. Burrow comes back. You make it to a Super Bowl in year 3, year 4. You're knocking on the door again. And guys, this is where I think when we look at quarterbacks, in particular, the flashy quarterbacks that we see, Hurts, and we can say what we will about Mahomes, but Lamar Jackson, and then we think about what really and truly makes a long-term quarterback viable. It's the ability to stay in the pocket. Not that Burrow's unathletic, but he is a pocket quarterback. He's probably the closest comp to Tom Brady in the current NFL. And if, in fact, the Bengals do beat the Bills guys, or the Chiefs, which is very possible, and right there on the table, especially with Mahomes' ankle injury, I think you could make a case for Joe Burrow being the number one quarterback right now, because everything is what have you done for me lately in the NFL, Joe? But I don't know if I could disagree with that take. And if they make it to the Super Bowl, I think these guys are winning it.
Yeah, I do too. I'm actually seeing, truthfully, I'm picking 49ers and Bengals. I'm gonna not bury the lead right now and give you where I'm going with it. I think it's going to be a rematch of Montana versus Kenny Anderson. And when you talk about Joe Burrow and you talk about Tom Brady, I agree with that. Brady's a little bit bigger. I look at somebody like Joe Montana as the equal to Joe Burrow. And when you look at the stature and you look at the throwing motion and that type of thing, but yeah, Joey Burrow. I mean, you gotta love it's almost Lenny Dawson from back in the day when you see Lenny on the sideline smoking a heater. It's like Joe Burrow taking out a cigar, on the sidelines. You just expect him to just, in the middle of the third quarter, just say, "Hey, somebody got a cigar? I need a cigar and scotch." He's the man. And I think, again, hats off to Cincinnati. I wanted to see Mike McCarthy dance a little bit more. So I was disappointed about that. But, it just goes back to Dak Prescott. What do you have there in Dak Prescott? And so I think there are a lot of question marks in Dallas. I thought San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, that dude can coach. And DeMeco Ryans, if he does not get a head coaching job this offseason, that is a crying shame right there, because that guy's lights out, man. And just the pre-snap read of Fred Warner and that defense, just it's balls to the wall when you're playing that 49er team. So, I think they got it right. I think you got the 4 best teams coming up this weekend. But yeah, I was shaking my head in that Dallas game because I just kept on going back to, there's X amount of quarterbacks in the NFL. And I get it. Purdy's doing it, but Purdy's doing it with a damn good defense and a damn good coaching staff. And probably the best skill position players around him. But when you look at the quarterbacks out there, would you rather have an aging Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott? Would you rather have an aging Tom Brady or Kirk Cousins? I mean, it is really interesting when you get down to this point of the season. And Dak wins a game against Tampa Bay. Well, should Tampa Bay have even made the playoffs?
No.
And we all knew, you look at Daniel Jones, and I just saw Sulcer for wanting to see McCarthy
there. Yeah, that's
no, man. I want to see Big Mike moving, man. I want to see Big Mike moving. But it's just, you look at this and you start saying, like, Minnesota and Tampa Bay, they were probably the biggest hoaxes of this playoffs. And because you look at what then the Eagles did to the Giants, and I expected the Giants to come out and play a lot better, but I was fool's gold because what they did in Minnesota, I was tricked.
And I think that Joe, as Breacher, P1 Breacher, Soul Surfer was mentioning, Mike McCarthy's dancing. Best thing about Dallas's victory over Tampa Bay. This is why, we looked at Dallas and maybe even we looked
By the
at
way, Mike McCarthy, the epitome of white man's overbite.
Yes. God.
Yeah, no kidding.
He's just keeping it tight, keeping it in the pocket, doesn't want to move too much. Look, Dallas is a paper tiger, and we've been seeing this the entire year. You can't lose to a team like Green Bay the way that you did and expect to have anybody take you seriously. And then when you lose the final game, a game that meant nothing to the Washington Commanders, essentially, against a whole bunch of backups, and then expect to go into the postseason and do something. Again, that Tampa Bay game, who fucking cares? That was not a team that should have ever been in the postseason. What are your thoughts on this? Because I want to transition after McCarthy into Aaron Rodgers. What are your thoughts on McCarthy staying the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys? I think that the Cowboys may be pressed into a no-choice situation because if Quinn leaves and Kellen Moore leaves, if D'Amico Ryans leaves also, there is nobody else on that staff that can take over that job. I mean, at least not from what we see. Do you think that he remains the Cowboys head coach, or do you think that Jerry Jones, in all of his impetuousness, decides to move off from Mike McFadden this offseason and try to go find somebody else? I mean, who knows? Maybe they throw their hat into the Sean Payton ring.
Yeah, everyone knows that Jerry Jones loves Payton. I mean, he's loved him for a long time.
Sure.
But I don't see Big Mike leaving. I don't see Jerry pulling the plug. I don't think that necessarily was coaching that lost that football game. I will say that the last play, though, with Ezekiel Elliott at center.
Who's by the way?
That was interesting.
You know what? It took me back, and I got to give credit where credit is due, because Shooter McGavin tweeted out this morning that it's the scene with Henry Winkler and Adam Sandler when Henry Winkler is drawing up the play at the end, and then he's like, I don't know where I am. I got to catch my breath. That was Murphy to Dak on that last play. We're going to have Ezekiel Elliott snap it to you. And it just is like, yeah, that made no fucking sense.
So I felt bad. Tony Pollard got himself banged up and hurt in that game. And I know that was a big reason for the Cowboys run game to be stifled. But Ezekiel Elliott, he's washed, man. 10 carries, 26 yards. He's just, he can't do it anymore. And listen, Dallas is pretty much doomed. And I'll say this for the final salvo in Dallas, they paid these guys too much money. Like, they've got top 5 paid players at like 6 different positions. Guys who are, by the way, none of whom are top 5 players in their position. You just can't win like that. Let's transition to Green Bay while we've got time, though, Joe, because over the weekend, Adam Schefter, and I know a number of our audience members don't believe in the veracity of Adam Schefter's reporting, which is what it is. We've made plenty of fun of that ourselves. But Adam Schefter, along with a number of other outlets, are starting to pick up the narrative that Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, if in fact these two sides can't work something out and Rodgers doesn't get all the concessions he wants, including a bounty on Jordan Love and all draft pick rights, for the next 5 years. If these two sides can't come together, there may be the trade potential hanging out there. What are you hearing, and what are your thoughts on that particular possibility?
Well, let's go back to the McAfee interview last week, and I said this: I don't see retirement at all in Rodgers' future. All right, so let's remove that one from the table. My outlook on how, and again, it's all going to come down to what this franchise thinks of Jordan Love. I mean, honestly, you guys, that's what this whole thing boils down to. If the franchise truly believes, and I'm sick of this bullshit that they don't know what they have in Jordan Love. They goddamn know what they have in Jordan Love. And I mean, you can't be around a guy for 4 years, in the classroom, on the practice field. If you're not good enough as a coach to see what you have after 4 years, you shouldn't be coaching.
Fair.
So it all comes down to, do the Packers feel they have the replacement in Jordan Love? If they do, then it's time to move on. All right. And because you've never had, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jordan Love going into this will be his 4th year, correct? Mm-hmm. All right. So if he sits again, he will be the first round quarterback to sit through 4 seasons.
Yep.
And not so it all comes back to it. Could there be a trade? Absolutely. And people say, well, if you trade him after June 1st, blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is Green Bay can trade him. They're going to be saddled with $40 million of dead cap no matter what. All right. So yes, you're not going to wait till June 1st to trade Aaron Rodgers, because you're not looking at draft choices in 2024. And so you're going to take that $40 million cap hit. And if you are going to go with Jordan Love, obviously, you've got still a rookie contract quarterback. And remember, guys, Green Bay gave Jordan Love a guaranteed deal from the draft. And so you look at where Green Bay did this. And again, Goody back in the day wanted Jordan Love. So could a trade happen? 100%. And again, I don't think he retires. I think he either plays for Green Bay. If they trade Aaron Rodgers, it tells you at least that they feel they have a fighting shot with Jordan Love. If they capitulate to Rodgers, and again, he mentioned his boys, he mentioned Lazard, he mentioned Bakhtiari, he mentioned Mercedes Lewis, he mentioned Cobb, he mentioned Tunyon. All right, so out of those guys, would I like Tunyon back on a cheap deal? Yeah, I think he was recovering from the ACL. David Bakhtiari, when he was playing, was still an elite left tackle. Would I take him back? Absolutely. Lazard is going to ask for too much money. If Cobby wants to play, who knows? But if Aaron Rodgers comes back to Green Bay, it speaks more volumes about Jordan Love than it does about Aaron Rodgers. And that's what it's come down to is, and I've said this to you guys before, talking to coaches back in the Favre Rodgers time, they knew what they had with Rodgers. He was kicking their ass on the scout team. And so I look at this and look, if they move on, then they feel, and again, Dave, this, and Chad, draft day 2020. Dave asks me on the air, what's the one thing Green Bay could do that'll piss you off? I didn't say draft a quarterback. I said draft Jordan Love.
That was it.
And so I hope,
the guy himself.
I hope I'm wrong if they move on from Rodgers and put Love in there. But if a trade happens, that tells you they feel good about Love. If a trade doesn't happen and it's 12 again, that tells you that Goody fucked up. And they don't have the quarterback they thought they had in Love.
I think that what we're seeing this weekend too, Joe, is as we watch the NFL playoffs, Jalen Hurts, second-round draft pick, a high second-round draft pick, but a guy that if the Packers wanted to take a quarterback in that draft, we both said that should have been who they took.
Take him in the second round.
Take him in the second round. Then you look at Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, and I know that we'll play that narrative over and over again, but it's just so wildly fascinating that he was the last player picked in the NFL draft. You look at, Cincinnati, obviously, and Kansas City both have top draft picks in number 1 and number 10, I believe, respectively. But 2 of the 4 guys that are playing are on combined deals that amount to $3 million. Mm-hmm. That's Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy. Those 2 guys are playing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So, if Jordan Love isn't able to at least be Brock Purdy, then yes, Brian Gutekunst fucked up bad. But the reason, in my estimation, the Packers hired a guy like Matt LaFleur is so that they could get the kind of system that Kyle Shanahan, that Sean McVay has, which should elevate quarterbacks that aren't necessarily Aaron Rodgers into that position where they could be perhaps at least vying for a Super Bowl, if not at least deep playoff runs. Now, before I let you go off of this topic, I've got to ask you this because I want to say it was Rob Dog who chimed in with us and said, now the rumor mill has the hoodie, and that, of course, is Bill Belichick, New England, in the sweepstakes for Aaron Rodgers. This isn't something that I've heard anything about, but Joe, give me your takeaway. If Rodgers does get traded to the Patriots, which again would be kind of wild, do you think that he would have, Aaron Rodgers, a better chance to win a Super Bowl than he does in Green Bay?
It's a great question. And coaching alone, look, I get it. Brady did his thing, but that Brady-Belichick partnership, they made so many fucking deals with the devil to get that run done. Yeah, and you take the Patriots run with Belichick and Brady out of there, and really every other quarterback has 1 or 2 Super Bowls. I mean, that's it. So you take that run. I think Belichick and would drool at having Rodgers. I remember when Brady talked about it. If a quarterback as talented as Rodgers was in this offense, he'd be throwing for 50, 60 touchdowns a year. And so Brady said that. Brady gave the nod as far as who's a better athlete and who's a better quote unquote quarterback, Aaron Rodgers over Tom Brady. And so, yeah, do I think that this is a real possibility he gets traded? Absolutely. 100%. Am I okay with it? Absolutely. Because that at least tells me that they see something in Love. If they don't, you guys, we got to point every fucking finger, hands, toes, everything at Brian Gutekunst. And I still say this, when Gutekunst traded up for Jordan Love, I think he wanted Justin Jefferson. I think Minnesota jumped him And I think Goody didn't know where to go at that point. And I think that he made the fatal mistake. And again, do yourselves a favor. Watch Jordan Love's sophomore year and then watch his junior year.
Yeah, big difference.
It's a big difference. And again, I hope I'm wrong. I will eat crow for the next 15 years. I will buy everyone drinks if Jordan Love takes the Green Bay Packers to a Super Bowl. Every year on opening day, wherever I'm at, I'm buying the whole bar drinks if Jordan Love is successful. I still to this day don't see it, guys. And again, if they do trade him, that's great. If they don't trade him, that's on Goody.
Well, Joe, all we know is this. The Packers have some draft picks, and if they just take one of their guys in the 7th round, turn him into Brock Purdy, all this is going to be forgiven and forgotten for all of us here on the program. And I know we've got a lot more questions that we can't really get into right now. Thank you for everything. It's great talking to you. Again, Mad Dog of Madison, the Green and Gold Insider, and International Male Model 1996, Joe Daguanno. It's been a pleasure.
It was 98.
Oh, 98. My fault. 96 was your runner-up year. I forgot. Good call. Good call.
Well, then I had the 97 drug rehab year, right. and then I came back, and it's like Favre. I was like Favre, and they had the painkillers and all that time. It was a sordid history. I'm actually hoping like that Joey from Friends plays my biopic.
Ooh, I think we could make this happen. He needs to lose a couple of pounds, but I think we could make it happen. All right,
Joey back in the day.
Yeah, Joey back in the day. Fair enough. All right, well, Joe D, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for your wise wisdom, your insight, and all of your Packer knowledge. We appreciate you, buddy. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, guys. Take care.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Coming to Fox this fall, it's the Bench Brothers.
Talking about that street clothes in Westbrook.
They're getting down on the bench. The Bench Brothers, brought to you by Big Dick's Hoagie Heaven. Remember, ladies, the first 6 inches is free. And by Don Francisco's. At Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
Street clothes in Westbrook.
They're getting down on the bench.
Back to the action live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival. I think Deshaun Watson put it best when he asked the question, can you give me a hand? Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Deshaun Watson, can you give me a hand? How much is that going to end up like? How much is that going to end up debilitating the Cleveland Browns? And that sounds bad because Cleveland's been such a shit show for so long. But, dude, they gave this guy $250 million in guaranteed money. And he doesn't look like he's nearly as good as Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts or fuck anybody really at this point. What a shame. And that's something.
It truly is. It is interesting to see when you look at the failed Cleveland quarterbacks. That list is long, includes guys like Tim Couch and Brady Quinn.
Yes.
And really
Brandon Weeden, Johnny Manziel.
It's just like it's where quarterbacks go to die.
You betcha. Baker Mayfield. I mean, think about the guys that they have drafted high. Number 1, number 25, doesn't matter. They have really struck out in this Deshaun Watson thing. Great joke, and what a fucking asshole. I like John Clifford checking in here this morning. John says, would Rodgers rather be on the West Coast? John also asked if he has to, and that's Aaron Rodgers, approve of a trade from his contract. So Aaron does not have a no trade clause in his particular contract. So that's not something that he can't dictate to the Packers where they would trade him. If in fact the Packers were to trade him, rather be on the West Coast. Again, wish in one hand and shit in the other, see which one fills up the fastest. Because on the West Coast, the only possible team that would take on Aaron Rodgers right now would be the Raiders. That would be the only team right now. Unless the Arizona Cardinals want to trade Kyler, short stuff Murray to the Packers, who I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole right now. The guy's he's a complete diva. And this is not Aaron Rodgers. That's that Kyler Murray. Where would Rodgers go on the West Coast? The Seattle Seahawks would make no move for that because they've at least got Geno Smith and that, kid behind him that played for Denver. What's his name again? I don't know, but they got that kid from Denver in a trade, and they've got a whole lot of draft prospects that they can take a look at with the trade that they had from Denver, plus their own picks, there's really not going to be a ton of landing spots. If New England wanted to make a huge swing, if the Tennessee Titans wanted to make a huge swing, if the Houston Texans, which I don't think Rodgers, he'd probably retire before he went.
He wouldn't take that. Texans. Yeah. No.
If the Indianapolis Colts, we talked about this a bit last week with Mike Schmidt, Northern State Wolves head coach. If the Colts and drunk Jim Irsay wanted to make a swing at it, maybe. There's going to be a few places, very few places that Rodgers would actually A, fit, and B, go to before he would probably retire. So this is going to be interesting for Rodgers, and it'll be interesting for the Packers. Joe Daguanno just mentioned, Chad, if the Packers do move on from Rodgers, that means they believe they've got something in Love. And if they don't, he says it's more of an indictment on Love than it is on Aaron Rodgers, at which point you start to wonder if general manager Brian Gutekunst gets fired. Because if you bungle this thing that badly, and this is what you're left with, $160 million in cap that you've got to work on before the season starts. I mean, the Packers are over their skis right now as far as the money. They have the highest, cap hit going into next season as of right now of any team in the NFL. That might be a consideration, but this is why we love the NFL, Chad, because it gives us a year's worth of storylines. Every other sport has seasons, and then the seasons in which we talk about it, right? We'll talk about baseball around opening day, and then we'll talk about it again in April, August and September, right? So you go from, March, April to August, September, and you can spend 6 months not talking about baseball, and everything's fine. Not really a blip on the radar. The NBA doesn't even really get pub until after Christmas. That's when the season sort of starts for the NBA, but the NFL is a year-round thing. It's a year-round process. It's a year-round saga, and that's why we love talking about it so much. SOT Productions on YouTube. We have to send you a link. I'm not exactly sure who you are right now, but SOT Productions says he wants to get on the show. He or she will work this out. I'll reach out to you off air. We'll see if we can't get you on. But I'd have to have some information to get you that live stream link. If you want to join the program and just comment, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch are the places.
We're doing it now.
In which you can comment. That's what I mean. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, you can comment now. But in order to see your face here on the production, we've got to get you a link. Chad, let's get that weekend recap up before we wrap up shop here today, a Monday edition of the Sports Carnival. And again, thanks so much to the Recovery Room, the proud sponsor of the Trauma Center Studios from coast to coast. Preferred Insurance, Tony and Brian down there on 4th Street, opening up another agency. Our friends at the Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia, Todd Vercruzzi, the Coos, and of course, Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate, all the official insurance, mortgage, and real estate providers of the program. BetUS, want to make some coin? BetUS.com, enter promo code Carnival, 125% deposit match. Of course, we got your legal troubles solved with Sean O'Neill at the O'Neill Law Firm, and your landscaping needs done by Joe's Helping Hands Landscaping. Thank you guys so much. This weekend, we talked about it briefly at the beginning, Chad. The Giannis-less Bucks, they fell to the Cavs 114-102 on Saturday. Cleveland's not a bad team at all. I mean, this is a team that can play. Now, without Giannis, it looks a little different. But this evening, the Bucks are looking to get back on track versus the Pistons. From all indications, Giannis will be suiting up. This will be the third time the teams have played the season. Bucks won the last meeting 116-91. Giannis had 32 points. We talked about the Eagles stomping the Giants. Major disappointment for Daniel Jones, who looked like he made himself a boatload of money against Minnesota, Chad. Pump the brakes. Not so fast, New York, because Daniel Jones, who threw 15 touchdowns to just 5 picks and did run in for, I think, 7 or 8 more scores this season, returned to the mean, if you will. 15 for 27, barely over 50% completion percentage, 1 interception, no touchdowns. The Eagles flummoxed this guy all day long. He really is limited. Daniel Jones can do some things, but he is not the kind of quarterback, at least I don't think, that can get you over a really good team, a really good defense. We talked briefly about the Chiefs beating the Jags 27-20. The Jags, that is, covered the spread, the 10-point spread. I think Matty Ice and I both liked that, and I think you did too. Patrick Mahomes, Chad, advances to the 5th straight AFC title game. This is something I was talking about with Packer fans this weekend. If Rodgers and the Packers, even if they didn't win more than the 1 Super Bowl that they had, but they kept knocking at the door, like every single year, you felt the team was close, right? Like it was a play away or a player away from going to a Super Bowl or winning a Super Bowl. I think largely you could be satisfied with that, because you could have that feeling that this team was always kind of right there. For Patrick Mahomes, that's what he does. He puts that team in position to win a Super Bowl nearly every season. The Bengals, however, they cruise to a victory over the Buffalo Bills 27-20. The Bills right now crushing our poll as the most disappointing team of the weekend. And by the way, this was our ESPN play of the week. Every Thursday at about 5 with John Papadopoulos. Chad and I are coming up with our play of the week. I give it to you guys there on ESPN. We had the Bengals plus the 5 points, and we felt great about that particular play. If you want to make that money, again, betus.com, promo code Carnival, and watch the Sports Carnival, because, Chad, you and I have been doing pretty good. 4-2 in the 6 weeks now with ESPN. So we're liking where we're headed as far as that record and trajectory is concerned.
Yeah, it's gone well, and congratulations, because it's mostly you.
Well, whatever. We do what we do, and it's the royal we. And we love you guys and gals, and be sure to tune in tomorrow here on the Sports Carnival, 8 to 9 in the Central Time Zone. Matt Janis, UWL head football coach, will be joining us. Chad, have a great rest of your day, and look forward to seeing you guys all in the morning.